Hello, everybody. As announced, I'm Heidi. I am one of the local funding officers with the National Lottery, um, and I cover Peterborough and North Norfolk normally. The funding officer who specifically covers Cambridge has recently moved on. Hopefully, we have two new colleagues. Is there a question? No. If just to let you know that I can't see any of you the way my screen's set up, so Ollie's going to let me know if there's any comments in the chat. If you do have questions, if you can pop the questions into the chat, I'm happy to take questions as we go through. Just to let you know, also you will be getting all of these slides in a PDF version at the end, so you don't need to make notes of anything that's written on the slides. Okay, so let's go through. What we're going to look at today is who we are as the National Lottery Community Fund, the difference we want to make, what funding is available and how to apply, and then there'll be time for questions at the end. So as many of you will probably know, as the National Lottery, the players contribute about 30 million a week to good causes. As the community fund, so there's several different, there's the Arts Council, the Sports Council and the Heritage Fund, and we at the Community Fund, we give out about 700 million to communities across the UK. We're the largest single source of funding for community activities in the UK. And these figures are for Cambridgeshire in yellow, that we've got 119 active grants in Cambridgeshire, and that's not including Peterborough, totaling around 16.4 million pounds. And if we look at the split of those, and that's National Lottery Awards for All, which is our smaller grant up to £20,000. And we've got 77 organisations which have those currently. And then Reaching Communities, we've got 42 organisations across Cambridgeshire that have got active Reaching Communities grants. So that's just to give you an idea of the scale of our funding. Today, we're really focusing on how to apply for our funding, but if you do want to look into our wider strategy, in the PDF of the slides that will come out, there's links here to our strategy and our ambition for our funding, and you can follow those through to our website. And many of you will know that we relaunch Reaching Communities in April 2025 to refocus on our new strategy. It starts with community and our community-led missions, which our communities are healthier, communities are more connected, communities are environmentally stable, and communities help young people and children to thrive. So we've always funded these things, but this is a renewed focus on those missions, and we'll look at those missions more later. So the funding we have available, as mentioned, the National Lottery Awards for All, which is up to £20,000. So if you are familiar with Awards for All, that used to be up to £10,000 and only over 1 year. It's now up to £20,000 and can be over 2 years. So for smaller organisations, they might like to have 5,000 a year over 2 years, so that's a £10,000 grant, or a larger organisation might value the £20,000 over 1 year. And then Reaching Communities is really anything above that level, so that's 20,000 or more, and we can go up to funding over 5 years. All of the information about applying is on our website, but we'll go through some more of that now. So who can apply? One of the first things to do is to check that you are eligible. And there's lots of information about this on the website, but basically it's any not-for-profit organisation. So if you're a registered charity, a constituted voluntary or community organisation group, so you can be unincorporated and apply for our funding, and we will talk more about that in relation to asking for capital funding later. Or you can be a statutory body, a local authority, council or school. We do support not-for-profit companies or community interest companies, and that's quite unique. Many funders don't support those organisations. We can't accept any applications from individuals or sole traders, and organisations must have at least 2 trustees who aren't married or in a civil partnership, long-term relationship, living at the same address or related by blood. So if your organisation isn't listed there, you can look at the website to check your eligibility. What you can spend the money on. So again, if you're familiar from reaching communities in the past, and it is quite a long time ago now, it's been about 7 years that we've moved away from project funding, and we fund what you need us to fund now. So that covers organisational running costs, equipment, materials, any of the revenue costs that your organisation has, you can come to us for. And that includes the land building and refurbishment projects. So it's all of the environmental, all of the organisational development costs, and also any costs for environmental sustainability. So if you're looking to do something to make your organisation more environmentally sustainable, or your building more environmentally stable, then you can come to us to ask for those costs as well. So what do we mean by those development costs? It's strengthening your governance. You might be unincorporated and looking to incorporate and need some sort of consultancy support to do that from someone like Cambridge ACRE maybe, or you might need solicitor support to do that, or you might be a relatively new organisation and not very confident with evaluating the impact that you're making. So we're very keen, even with land building and refurbishment projects or organisational development projects, we're very keen on seeing what difference the funding has made, how that has improved the outcomes for your beneficiary group, whether that is a geographic beneficiary group or a thematic beneficiary group. Have I just gone backwards? So National Lottery Awards for All. As we've said, that can be up to 20,000 over 2 years. You can only hold one National Lottery Awards for All grant at once, and you can only have a maximum amount of money over a 12-month period. We prioritise groups on lower incomes. So it does have a figure on the site. I think it says large groups, which I think is over 1 million. So there's probably not too many groups on here which that would affect, but it is something to keep in. You can still apply if you've got an income over that amount, but you may be, if we have particularly large application volumes, your application may be non-recommended just because of the size of your organisation. It's one-stage online application process. It's open rolling program, so you can apply at any time. The turnaround time, it does state how many weeks on the website. I think at the moment it's 16 weeks turnaround. So that's from when you apply to getting a decision about whether you'll be funded or not funded. But as it says on the slide here, we are experiencing very high rates of success of applications now, which means the success rate has dropped. So whereas the success rate used to be as high, in the 80s, 85%. It is down in the mid 50s now. And that's really, although we've got more money going out for Awards for All each year, it is just the number of applications that we're getting in. So it is something to keep in mind when you're applying. Awards for All priorities, you can see on the screen there, they're very well aligned to the mission areas that we're doing, and they do include, if you look at the improved places and spaces that matter communities, if we're talking about village halls and capital projects, then that's where, that's probably the outcome that you'd be looking to be able to fulfill. Although it might be bringing people together, creating a warm and safe space for people to come together. I won't go into too much about the process, but it's a very short, succinct process. Those are the questions. There's more information about the questions on the website. We did have for a short time, if people are aware, a separate page on the website for applying for environmental funding. That separate page has gone now, but you just apply through Awards for All. That's just been mainstreamed into the Awards for All application process. And you can see there that we're looking for people, projects that help people connect with and care for nature in their area and help people to make a positive difference to the environment. And that might be through things that you're doing to the building or things you're doing to green areas around there. And there's a link there to full information on our web page. So moving on to our larger grant scheme, Reaching Communities. This again, you apply via our website, but it's a two-stage application process. So you apply via the website, and that we call the idea stage. If we like the idea, then we'll invite you to submit a full application with more information in it, and you'll get an email. We look to get through that first stage in about 3 months. If you're invited to apply, we encourage you to complete that further information within another sort of 2 to 3 months. And then again, we have sort of 3 to 4 months to go through that application. So we're looking at a sort of 9-month process for Reaching Communities. And requests should be proportionate to the organisation's income and experience. So we are looking to fund projects. So all the projects that we fund must speak to these 3 priorities. So the first priority there is supporting places, people and communities experiencing poverty, disadvantage, or discrimination. So that community might be a geographic community, or it might be a thematic community. For example, people suffering from sight loss, or it might be a geographic area. This is a really important one to us, and we look for you to explain to us how your community is facing that discrimination, disadvantage, or poverty. We don't have fixed ideas about what that is, but we're looking for you to explain to us how your community is experiencing that. The second priority that every application must talk to is telling us how you support people and communities to shape the decisions that affect their lives. So this looks very different to different groups, but we're looking at how people have been involved in the setup and design of the project, how they're going to be involved in the running of that project. It looks very different to a small, sort of unincorporated organisation. to a local authority. Those things are going to look very different, but we want to understand how people have a genuine influence over that project, and how it is run on an ongoing basis. And then the third priority is that you can align very strongly with at least one of our missions. So, as a reminder, priority one, we've talked about that, so I'm not going to go through that more at the moment, but there's lots more on the website for that. And we're looking for you to tell us how. We don't have a set list of criteria for this. We're looking for you to say how your project is addressing those needs. Supporting communities to shape the decisions that affect their lives. That's priority two. Again, we're looking for you to tell us how your project is really involving your community, and that can look in many, many different ways, but we're looking for you to tell us how that happens. And then the missions, we've talked about these missions in a previous slide already. You must address at least one of these missions. So the outcomes of your project must address at least one of these missions. If you feel your project can address all of them, that is great, but think about how the outcomes, how the difference your project's going to make, how you're actually going to be able to manage that, and how you're going to be able to measure those outcomes so that you can demonstrate that your project is really addressing these mission areas. So coming together, you can be providing inclusive places and spaces, especially for communities where people are least able to come together. With young people and children, it's looking to be developing those positive social and emotional skills. Being healthier is addressing those health inequalities and helping prevent poor health. And the environmentally sustainability is by engaging with climate issues and having a positive environmental impact and improving access to quality natural spaces. So you don't need to talk to each of those sort of sub-elements, but be talking to sort of one or two of them really strongly. So we'll be prioritising projects which have the best fit. So again, we were talking about those success rates for Awards for All. We're down in the mid-50s. Success rates for reaching communities. At that stage one, where you apply via the website, the success rate there is about 20%. These are very rough figures. Please don't quote me, but this is just to give you an idea. And then the success rate at the stage two, when you've been invited to apply, is about 80% of that 20%. So that makes the success rate about 16%. So it's really important to to have a good read through the website. There's lots of information on there to help you understand what we're looking for under these missions, and how you can explain that to us. And we'll be prioritising projects that can show us how their outcomes are most closely aligned to this. So you might have a good project that is fundable, but we need to understand how well aligned it is. Now, we are what we call a relational funder. We can talk to you. So it's not a once you've submitted your application that's it, we can't ask any more questions. So if we feel the project aligns, but we can't quite see what outcomes you're going to be able to evidence from that, we can contact you either via email or arranging a call with you. And that certainly at stage two, we would definitely arrange to have a meeting with you so that we could talk about the project and understand it more clearly. So it's really for us to try and understand how those how your outcomes, your project outcomes, will align to those missions, and that you're realistically going to be able to measure those. For example, one project that I worked with, they said they wanted to come in under the community health mission, and they believed that they were going to be able to reduce the health inequalities of their area by reducing the differential between, the postcode differential of people in their postcode died 15 years earlier than people in neighbouring postcodes. And that's a really long-term outcome to try and measure. And it's also quite hard to isolate and say that your project's doing it. So we were able to talk through and come up with some other measures which they would be able to evidence, so they could put this is what they were working towards, was being able to reduce those health inequalities, but they could actually come up with an outcome which was something realistic that they could measure going forwards. Yeah, so there are some slides here which just go through the missions again. I am going to talk through the environmental sustainability one a bit more. Although we've always been able to fund environmental projects, it's not something that we've done a lot of in the past. So this is something we're really promoting, the fact that we can do this. So we can fund projects that are empowering people to engage with climate issues and adapt to the impacts of a changing climate. We understand that the impact of the emergencies are not likely to be felt equally. So things like people who are living in city areas, the increased heat, they're maybe going to suffer more than somebody who's maybe in a rural area. So some of the projects that we funded, say down in London, is creating little miniature city forests, and that has a really big impact on cooling the local area. So there's lots and lots of projects. If you go onto our website, you can find lots of examples of things that we have been able to fund, but it just gives you an idea of some of the things. We can't fund things like coastal defences because our funding doesn't go to that way, but there are projects that can help people adapt to the impacts of climate change on a much more local level. We can fund people taking part in activities like reducing carbon emissions or creating spaces for wildlife, and we can help communities to have access to quality nature. And we've put that quality in because we're not just looking for manicured lawns. We're looking for places that are going to be planting to be beneficial for wildlife, or helping people experience the natural world around them, so that they can appreciate the environment and the things that are there for them, which builds awareness of the problems of climate change, and enables communities to identify solutions for themselves, and then empowering communities to put into action those solutions. So there's a whole range of things that we can fund under that Be Environmentally Sustainable. And again, the website's got lots of information, and we can have pre-application conversations. So if you've got an idea and you can't find information on the website to make you feel comfortable that it would be aligned to us, then we can have a conversation with you beforehand, because we'd like to save you time from applying and it not being suitable. and ourselves the time of assessing applications that aren't aligned as well. But as I've said, sometimes talking through a project, we can maybe find the way that it could be expressed that does align it to our missions. There's a couple of slides there about the application process, the questions that we've got at stage 1, which is via the website, and then the stage 2 application there, and you can see that on average it takes around 9 months. If you are coming in for a capital project, so anything over £20,000 being spent on land or buildings, that can extend the length of time from those 9 months. It can go to 12 months, it can go to 18 months, depending on how much backwards and forwardsing there are between lawyers, etc. On the website, I've put the link here so you'll be able to see it, but on the How to Apply tab, there is a link to our land and building guidance checklist, which you can download before you make an application, just so that you can see what will be involved, the types of things we're going to be asking you, so that you can understand what is going to be involved. So sometimes people have looked at that and they're only coming into us for 30,000 and they think there are easier ways for us to raise the money than going through the process. But this is the due diligence process that we go through. A lot of other groups have found it really handy because they're small, they're new to doing capital projects, so they found it a really good checklist to go through to help give them sort of like guidance and confidence about the process and steps that they're taking. There is a note there as well saying that you must either own or lease the land or building that you want funding for, and that your leased or freehold must last for at least 5 years from the date that the work will be completed. So it'll be really good for you to have a look through those things. I have mentioned outcomes, the difference the project will make. And if we're talking about sort of new or renovating community projects, I thought it would be helpful just to show you some of the types of outcomes. So we don't give you the money to build a new building. That's not what we're interested in. What we're interested in is what that building, what use that building is going to be put use to at the end of it. So these are not the outcomes, the only outcomes. These are just an example of some outcomes that one specific project put in, but I just thought it would be helpful because sometimes groups find it really hard to think about what outcomes. They're just focusing on getting a new boiler for the hall, and that's what they talk about, whereas the new boiler for the hall allows them to have groups in, elderly people can come to the hall because it's going to be a warm and sort of safe space for them rather than being cold. So if we just quickly run through those examples of outcomes. Outcome 1, make the hall available and welcoming for the community all year through improved heating. So that's what I've been talking about with the heating system. Outcome 2, work with the community to agree on and implement new ideas for events and activities that give all members, ages and abilities the opportunity to participate and meet. Outcome 3, increase the number of activities provided to help all members of the community improve their skills. And outcome 4, raise funds to install a defibrillator to provide much needed resource to the community. So again, they are not the outcomes we're looking for. They're just examples to show you how we're not just looking to rebuild that hall. We want to understand what you would be able to do with that hall because of the funding you've got from us. Then there's a slide there just about if you're successful, the steps that we'll go through, and there's a link there through to the website, which has got things about our expectations for safeguarding for children and adults at risk, and links to our guide on financial controls and financial governance. And our requirement, it's got the T's and C's in there, and it's good to have a read through the T's and C's, make sure you understand those. And one of our requirements is for open recruitment. So that means that if you are looking to move, you've maybe just been run by volunteers before, but you're looking to employ someone, you can't just employ the volunteer that's been doing that role before. You need to go through an open recruitment process. And I've just added this slide in. I'm looking at the time. We want to leave some time for questions. That is the very next slide. But I just wanted to flag up to you that we've got a couple of really good resources about using AI on our website. And one of those is our 10 principles for using AI. And the other one is a statement on using AI in funding applications. It's completely allowable. If you use AI well, we will not know that you have used it. Unfortunately, we are seeing part of the reason we're getting so many more applications is more groups are using artificial intelligence to create their applications, and they are not going through and reviewing those really well afterwards. And that just means that those organisations, there's generic, it's not been tailored to their own organisation. I've had an application that's come through which has had a little square brackets in it going, add the name of a youth organisation in your area that you can say you're working with. And that's obviously it's wasting the organisation's time. It's wasting our time in assessing that. So it's really good. Have a read of those. You can use artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence used well is a real boon, we know, to organisations, especially groups who are not confident, haven't got experience of applying. But as I say, we are a relational funder. We're place-based, so we get to know our areas. We're available to have conversations with you pre-application, and we can have conversations with you through the application. So we do ask you to read the website because there's lots and lots of information on there, but we can have those pre-application conversations with you. Okay, I'm on to the questions slide now. So I'm going to stop sharing.